What's up, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Deckin Around Live with. My name is Tyler,
I am Steve.
and today we are super excited to have James Kiernan of the Card Inn on the show. For anyone who doesn't know James, then you probably don't live in the UK. James has been selling cards in the UK for several years now. He's probably one of the bigger retailers in that area, having started from what is that nice little office behind him there to now really facilitating a lot of card purchasing for UK collectors and users, which I think is awesome. James, great to have you on again, man. It's been a while. How have you been?
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, guys. I think it was March, was it 2020?
It may have been,
Just
yeah.
just when
Dude, you
COVID was kicking off.
It's a long time, long time.
I've grown facial hair since.
See,
I had
good to see
zero
things are changing.
before.
Good to see things are changing, always evolving there. How things going with the shop, man? I know when we first had you on, it was to talk a little bit about the shop and how you kind of got into everything, but you're still running strong with it, and you're now expanding into the production side of things. How are things going?
So things have gone really well. When I was last on, we just introduced the unboxing experience. Since then, it's gone well. It's the main work that I've got now, and I do a little bit of football coaching on the side. But yeah, now looking at doing our own decks, and I think we might focus on that more and less on the resale side of things.
Okay, that's an exciting kind of change as well for you. Probably makes things a little more personal.
Yes, and I'm also looking to, if I'm stuttering, I've got a little bit of an echo in the back of
No
my mic. It's
worries,
kind of putting me off, but
no worries.
it's interrupting my thoughts. So I'm actually looking to go into maybe football journalism as a career path.
Nice.
So naturally, if I get into this, I won't be able to go to the post office as much. So it's kind of a little bit of a transition period. And rather than worry about selling Fontaines, Theory 11 decks, and so on, I'd rather focus that extra energy onto my own personal projects than all these decks you can see behind me, which is only a tiny amount compared to what's actually in my office.
And you know what? The funny thing is, you mentioned there too the idea of being able to really facilitate these changes you're trying to make in your life with the football journalism, with the cards. It's nice to see though too that you haven't just fully pivoted off. You know, you're slowly transitioning to a way that's going to make all of your interests come together there. You know, while we were talking about the card in, obviously today we're here to talk about the Chancers playing cards, which is the first deck being produced from Good Pals Co. For anyone who hasn't seen these on Kickstarter yet, I'm about to drop the link in the chat right now, but it is also down in the description, so I highly recommend you go check it out. We have about 48 hours left on this campaign. How has it been going through your first campaign?
It's been good amidst a couple of mistakes that we made. But yeah, you know, it was really encouraging to see after about a day. I think we raised about £3,000. So we got off to a good start. I think we funded after maybe 5-6 days. Then we released our gilded decks. That pushed us up to about 8,000. Then it's the last few days now. We haven't had too much traction since,
Okay.
but we're hoping just to get a little bit extra in the next couple of days. And yeah, then just excited to actually see the real product.
And so, going through that whole production side of things and having dealt with so many cards yourself, what was that like trying to figure out who you wanted to print, where you wanted to go, what colors and all that stuff you wanted to do? Was it something that you felt pretty comfortable with, or was it still a pretty big learning experience?
It's definitely still a learning experience. And I think we will do some videos about this explaining the process, because I don't think there's enough content out there that talks about the entire process. Since we have a shop, I was quite confident of how to go about it. But, you know, picking a designer, working with a designer, we had a lot of my back design actually isn't on the prototypes, but the back design was tricky. You know, sometimes you have an idea in your head, doesn't translate to paper as much. So, but in terms of printer, we originally went for Cartamundi, realized that their prices are quite a lot more expensive than USPCC.
Yep.
And I thought, well, it's our first deck. I'd like to do two colors. Let's go with USPCC. and see where the funding goes. Because sometimes for your first deck, you can't always shoot for the moon. Sometimes first campaign, see how it goes, learn from it. Then maybe you could look at your more luxurious decks, change printing companies perhaps. So yeah.
Nice. No, and that's a smart move on it. I mean, I think Steve and I have talked about this a lot in the past too. That the whole goal of getting your deck funded is to get your deck funded. You have to do what you have to do to really make it a reality, and sometimes that is not going full out, not having all the bells
Yeah.
and whistles you want because you establish that credibility. So it's encouraging to hear you say that as well. And one of the cool things is too, first deck you're already funded, but that doesn't mean people shouldn't go check this out and back it even more if you haven't already. But at the end of the day, like, what was that relief feeling for you when you finally got funded?
Um, it was a relief. We I made a mistake of my funding goal. I should have made it double, but I kept making changes. Should I have this? I was speaking to Steve actually. Should the second deck be a stretch goal, or was I going to do them all together? And by the time I did it, forgot about the correct funding goal. But 10,000, that's a good mark for us,
Yeah.
and we're just a little bit off that. But yeah, it was a relief to see that people that those that showed interest followed through. Because we've done many releases at the card in where people said, yes, I want to get this, I want to get that, but the sale weren't necessarily there. So the fact that the interest actually turned into results, that was really encouraging for us.
No, I can imagine, man. I mean, you're pushing close to 200 backers on your first campaign. That's got to be a really encouraging feeling.
Yeah, so the way the campaign was going, I was thinking, oh, maybe we could finish on 12,000 or so. Looks like we're not going to get there, but sometimes you can look at the amount of money raised, but then you've also got backers as well. So the average pledge was about £50, which some campaigns have higher ones. But the fact that we're almost at 200 backers, that's almost 200 unique customers. So that's something to build on, especially if we do future campaigns. So it's definitely a positive.
Especially now. I mean, right now, it's so volatile in the community, and there's a lot of decks getting pushed out. And if you're hitting 200 backers, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
thanks
think
for that,
you're
Steve.
seeing a lot less Dex funding nowadays than we have historically, just because of everything going on in the world with financial
Yeah.
crises, with the state of the world in general, and people really being uncertain about how to spend their discretionary income. So from that point of view, again, yeah, like Steve said, 200 backers is an impressive number right now, and it's funny too because Tigger T just dropped in the chat. I bought some Good Pals shirts and received a flyer type paper. That's how I found out about this deck. And I have to say, one of the driving factors, I think, of your success throughout this community, James, has been your willingness to experiment and innovate new marketing ideas across the board. I mean, prior to you, there was really no one out there doing custom tape for their packaging and all these kind of small things that have added up to you really having a great marketing back for your company, but also for this whole Good Pals crossover you're doing as well with it, where you really get to see how that word of mouth works. What kind of got you into the idea of kind of experimenting with all these new ways of marketing?
Um, Not selling enough cards. And you know, it was always not a dream, but in 2019, that first year of selling, I always dreamed of having it to be full time. Um, and yeah, it was just to see my sales gradually increase every couple months was really good motivation.
Nice.
And Elon Musk, he said a really good saying about having a 10-year plan. You should get your 10-year plan and then try to do it in 6 months. And now you obviously won't achieve that in 6 months, but the fact that you've tried to scrunch that down into a small time frame, you have to act in a different manner. So every year, 2020, 2021, 2022 for the card in, we'd put our goals up here. And it was probably unlikely that we'd achieve them. But because we put them up there, we had to do things differently.
Yeah.
So sometimes we'd buy more stock. Sometimes we'd do more collabs, more influence outreach, just trying anything really, just to try and hit these targets. And if we don't get there, we don't get there, but we'd probably get further along than if we'd sort of played it a bit more safe. And sometimes, you know, working for my boss on a Saturday as a football coach, but he's very business oriented. And sometimes I see the things he does on a much bigger scale than me. And that has definitely helped me and inspired me to sort of take a bit more risk, such as like the Good Pals hoodies and the t-shirts. We're not going to do that again,
Yeah.
but it's something to learn from and something to try. And we at least we have a deck of cards out of it now.
Dude, I was wearing my Good Pals shirt the other day, actually. I was like, I love this shirt.
That's good. They're comfy, at least. They're comfy.
They are very comfy, and honestly, the thing I love about them the most, though, is the logo is subtle enough that you wear it, but you don't feel like you're a billboard. You know, a lot of times a brand will have like something small in the chest, and you look at the back, and it's the whole top to bottom of the back, and it looks like you're just advertising a brand. This is subtle enough where it's like, oh, it piques the interest of people, which I think is a smart move across the board. So
Yeah.
So now, obviously, this has been a long time in the works here. You have Good Pals Co. You have the card in. What was really the obviously the backstory of Good Pals Co. For anyone who doesn't know is on the Good Pals website. I would highly recommend going check it out, and the Instagram's down below as well. Follow it along. But what really for you was the idea to bring this all together? Did you always want to come out with your own deck? Was that always the motivation, and Good Pals was just the vehicle for it? Or was Good Pals always the idea as well?
So I've always wanted to do my own deck. In 2019, I had an idea for it. I was just focused on building the card in. Didn't really know how to go about doing my own deck, which is a good reason why I waited, because then I learned how. And I created Good Pals as I was looking for my logo design for a new brand. But in doing that, I found all these like skull artwork on Instagram, and I really liked it. And all of a sudden, I had an idea to put the skulls together, create some merch. So then my actual initial deck design that got pushed back, and I might never do it. But Good Pals came of that. Then the
Nice.
merch came, and then if you just see this graphic here, I just looked at this graphic with the crown. I just thought, I just really like that image. It's a strong image, like like the hand bursting through the crown. And
Yeah.
I just thought, let's make a deck out of that,
Dude,
and see where it goes from there.
and it really does have such a fun vibe to it, just across the board. All the detail for anyone who hasn't seen the back design. This isn't going to be the clearest picture, but there's so much detail and activity around it. But it's so fun at the same time. You could literally just look at it and see all of the interesting aspects. The slot machines, the horseshoe, all that fun stuff. The idea behind this, and obviously for anyone who doesn't know, the deck is called the Chancers playing cards. What really got you into the idea of like a casino deck, we'll call it for all intents and purposes here, because it has a casino theme to it?
So just before I answer, I just want to give a shout out to the designer. So the designer is called 47 Kills
Nice.
on Instagram. 47 Kills. Just his he is very skilled at creating these nice, colorful, vibrant images. So yeah, you look at the court cards, look at the front of the tuck, very talented designer.
Yeah.
But in answer to the question, the deck is inspired by a quote. I'm trying to quote it word for word. It's not the cards you're dealt, but how you play them. And so that's kind of to do about taking risks, risk over reward, or whatever you're dealt, how are you actually going to play that? We all have problems in life, or maybe setbacks. How are we going to adapt to this? And from that quote, we just thought about what imagery can we use to sort of encompass that. And then we thought we wanted to go for an intricate, detailed back design. So I just started thinking about, we've got a crown, we've got some poker chips, we've got some cards, and then naturally the casino artwork just sort of came with that.
Nice. Dude, it makes a lot of sense. And honestly, it's like I said, it's very interesting because it's a very active background. I don't want to say busy because I feel like busy has a negative connotation, but there's so much detail to it, but it all fits so cleanly. And obviously it's a two-way back design here, but the little intricacies of it and the little aspects of it are so fun, And then I love how you guys really built out the uniqueness of the pips, the indices, the jokers, all the aspects of the cards. You know, a lot of times we see someone who comes out with a custom back design and you're getting standard courts. And while it has its own place, I really love seeing that this is a fully custom deck.
Yeah, me too. Like sometimes there's some really nice Fury 11 decks. They're very nice, very luxurious. And then you see the same old spades, clubs, and it's just a little bit disappointing sometimes.
Yeah.
And obviously that's great for Magic, card games. But with the kind of designer we're working with, we really wanted to take what he can do and put that across every single card. So, and you know, like his strength, it is this colors, this vibrant imagery. And for
Yeah.
future decks, we want to go a bit more vibrant, colorful. Whereas this deck, obviously, the back design is monotone, like the black and white of chances.
Yeah.
But the faces are a bit more explosive and colorful. So we definitely want to go a bit more down the colorful route.
Nice. And I honestly, this is a deck that I think is so conducive to like multiple colorways as well. Like the black looks great, the red looks great, but you could do this in a green, a purple, an orange, a blue, whatever color you wanted under the sun, and it would still allow the detail and the artwork to stand out so well.
Yeah, that's the benefit of having the one color, two color back designs. Whilst our designer is brilliant, with brilliant designers, there is a cost to pay to have the decks, and we're going to look to make maybe 4 colors max. Maybe the next campaign, I think we're going to try to do green,
Okay.
but make it a marks deck, because many people they ask us, "Are you going to make this a mark deck?" There's so many opportunities. So,
Yeah.
but I've never really. I had a small stint in Magic, but I never used mark decks. So I'm definitely going to have to work with people to come up with a good system, and then perhaps maybe like a gold foil edition, and that would be a good way to sort of close off the Chances series.
So the one thing I will say on this too, for any ambitious magicians out there, there is enough minute detail on the back of this card in uniform ways that you could mark this yourself if you really wanted to. And that's a really cool aspect of it as well, because as much as this isn't intended to be a magician's deck necessarily, it could be used for Magic, and it would bring such a fun flair to it with the skulls and everything, especially around Halloween time. So for anyone who has not jumped on this and gotten this deck yet, I highly recommend it, because I do think it is a fun deck, and I'm glad to see, James, you coming out with something so just enjoyably done for your first deck, because I know this was a long time in the works. And you know, for you, how was the process, like you said, of finding an artist? Did you know from the jump who you wanted to use for it, or did you go through several iterations?
In terms of artist or design?
Both. Let's go with both. Artist first.
So artist was easy because 47 kills. He did our t-shirts and our hoodies,
Nice.
so we just went with him straight away. The challenge was it was my first deck, and it was his first deck. So our first few iterations of the back design, it just didn't quite work out for a deck of cards. It was still good, but to me, it just wasn't. It just wasn't something I think was that practical. Now, the number cards, the courts, that was easy. The number cards were only slightly modified, and our designer is that good at creating the skulls. That was a breeze to go through, like in a good way. Still took a bit of time, but the back design was tricky. We had to go through a few iterations, and sometimes you look at something so many times, you don't actually know what you're looking at. Like
Yeah.
your judgment is, I would show people and think, I'm not too sure on this. People like it, but then people are too nice sometimes. They might not actually tell you what they really think. So it's definitely challenging. So yeah, it plays on your mind. Like, should we start from scratch? Is it just my preference? I'm not too keen on it, but everyone else likes it. So it's definitely tough with the back design. Yeah, it's a challenge. It can be a challenge sometimes.
And I'm sure Steve would agree with me on this one too. We've been there with that as well. When you're designing, it is a tough balance to say, this is what I like, but you're not necessarily making a deck for yourself as much as you are. There's a larger weight towards, are people actually going to like this and support it and want to be a part of this? And sometimes you do have to sacrifice what resonates best with you because of that feedback. So it is good that you
Definitely.
elicited that feedback and tried to find it, because you're right. You do also have to take it with a grain of salt, but it's so important to realize that there's so much diverse interest in this community across the board. I mean, I know there's people out there who don't particularly like the idea of maybe skulls or skeletons, but at the same time, there's so many other aspects to this that you enjoy that it's like, all right, you try and make it so that as many people as possible will find something they enjoy with it, but at the same time, you can't please everyone, and
Yeah,
it's like it's
that's
a
very
very
true.
weird balance. Yeah,
I mean, some people aren't going to open a deck,
it's very true.
so
Also,
it's about what's on the front, not even the back design for some people. So
yeah, it's definitely an interesting kind of thought in that process because when you're trying to figure out who you're really looking to market this to, and going through it. And again, we talked earlier about your exceptional marketing skills within the community, but like when you're trying to market a deck too, if it is a collector's deck, yeah, that is something you have to consider. You gild a deck and no one's going to ever see the gilding. You
yeah, of course,
build
yeah.
a marketing system into it, no one's ever going to see it. You put on these beautiful custom court cards, and other than on the campaign, most people are not going to see them. And there's a lot of people out there who are surprisingly okay with that from the collector point of view. But I do encourage anyone out there who picks up this deck, definitely open it, free the pips, check it out. It is a beautiful deck with some amazing artwork to it, and I think that at the end of the day, if you're curious or concerned about opening it and losing collector's value, pick up two decks. There's always a way around it because this is not only a fun designed deck, but I think there's a lot of playability for this for a family game night and stuff like that. Because the other cool thing about it too, and I think this is an interesting direction you took, and I think it fits with the Good Pals idea. Is I'm gonna pull out a court card here. They're not like scary skeletons. They almost look like fun and comical. And so like if you're sitting down at a family game night with young kids, you're not worried about like you're not having a horror deck. It's not the Fontaine Halloween deck,
Yeah.
something like that. Like you're actually having a playful, fun deck that everyone's going to enjoy, and that makes it a little more interesting for anyone involved. Nothing against the time honored bicycle deck, but it's a little bit of a boring deck. There's nothing too eye catching about it once you've seen it a million times. So being able to find something that's reminiscent in the styling with the dual circles, but at the same time different and fun is it's a home run in my book, man.
Glad you guys like it.
So, like you said, you kind of had some other ideas along the lines of Good Pals, where to go with this beyond this campaign. Any little teasers you can kind of share with us there? What's the future of Good Pals look like?
So I had an idea for a new Good Pals design entirely, and I went to message my designer about it. And then as I did that, because Halloween is approaching, and I'm seeing a lot of Halloween decks, it made perfect sense for Good Pals to do a Halloween deck, especially because we've got the skulls and everything. So whilst Halloween is not really a big thing for me, it is to a lot of people. So I think we're going to try work on a Halloween deck.
Nice.
We'll get that done. And then next year, hopefully do a green marked chances and a gold foil one.
That'll be awesome.
And with deck schedule, what it's like with printing times, that might just be it for next year because of how long everything takes. But that's what I'm thinking for next year. I think, so long as people are still interested, and you want to see more of chances and potentially new designs, then yeah, let's go for it.
It's exciting, man. So you mentioned a green marked deck. Why green?
I love green decks, and there is definitely not enough.
I would definitely agree with that one.
One of my favorite decks is my first green deck was Black Roses green, and when I first bought it, I was like, oh, green. I'm not sure if I'm gonna like this. And this was like 2018, and I loved it. And I don't see many decks with that colors.
Yeah.
So I think let's go for it. Make it marked, and we might even make the courts a bit more traditional.
Okay.
Get like the frame around the courts. Just tone it down a little bit. And yeah.
Make it more of that magician oriented styling where you can really
Yeah.
It's eye catching, but it's not distracting.
Yeah. At least if there's a frame and maybe make the courts a bit more traditional.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little less not suspicious, but to someone who doesn't use cards, it's not too different.
You know what? I'm glad to see that after all this time we come back and the sex chat bots are still in the room there with us. So James, you know you've made it big on Decking Around when sexchat69.site comes in and tells you their private photos are here. But
Fellas, I got to bounce. James, amazing. I'm super excited about this. It's
it's
beautiful
a
deck,
beautiful deck. It really
Thanks,
is.
Steve.
and I got the red one, and I like it. So thank you.
That's great.
Everybody definitely needs to go out and support this, and let's maybe get 250 backers. That'd be pretty dope.
Yeah.
That'd be really good.
I love
Yeah.
to see it.
All right.
Honestly, Steve, thanks for tuning in, man. Enjoy work. We'll
Thanks,
see
Steve.
you later.
Thanks, everybody. Peace out.
And James,
See you later.
for one thing that we always like to do with kind of like wrapping things up on this end, for anyone out there who hasn't backed it, what's something that you want to share that you think will really get someone who's on the fence to back at this project?
I think if people, I guess this is more so towards the collectors or people who just appreciate card design. I think our courts are unique. So if you were to take a look at, maybe our images on the campaign aren't big enough, you can't see the courts in detail enough. But I think that's one thing that really sets the deck apart.
Yeah.
And we've got 12 unique courts as well. It's not free custom repeated times 4.
Yeah.
Each court card is unique, from the robes to their crown to the actual skeletal structure of their faces. And for me personally, when I'm looking at a deck of cards, when I'm going through the face, I don't just want to look at the back design all the time. I like to go through the numbers, the courts, and just see something a bit new
Yeah.
every time. And I think if you appreciate art and something a little bit different, then our deck has definitely got something for you.
And I couldn't agree more on that one, honestly, man. I think you have such a unique style to these courts, and I'm just going to hold up the clubs here because they're the ones that I just happen to have in hand. They're so fun. They have such a fun Renaissance vibe to them, while also being just very, very energetic and very different. I love the little coins flying around all of them with the Chancer's idea. The theme just carried through so well for you guys. So I'm happy to see this getting funded already. I'm hopeful to see it get even more funded because I think there's a lot of opportunity within this brand and this line of decks, man. You've done a phenomenal job with it. If
Thanks a
you
lot.
know what, it's funny because I think for a first deck, it's always a nerve-wracking thing. You don't know what the reception's going to be, but I think you put a lot of time and effort into it and took in a lot of that feedback. And congratulations on that, man. I'm happy to see it.
And that's what we want to hear. We want feedback. So if someone thinks something could be different or better or something they liked, we want to know about it.
Yeah.
We did an update on our Kickstarter of any feedback. We didn't get any comments. So even if someone's got a constructive criticism, we're open to that. And especially with what you guys would like to see next.
And I think that's one of the things that makes you such a stable entity in this industry here is you really are always open to that feedback and you're always looking to grow and looking to make the experience not just better for you but for everyone involved with your business, which I always respect and love, man. So I'm excited to see this kick off. For anyone who has not backed this campaign yet, the link is in the description below. I'm about to drop it in the chat again right there. So head on over to the Kickstarter. You have about 48 hours left on the Chancer's playing cards. I'm going to go take a look here and confirm that. Yep, it says 48 hours still. So you're coming up on 47 hours probably soon. Make sure to get on top of that if you have not already checked it out. It is a fun deck. If you're looking for something that you can pull out at your next family game night and really have everyone go wow while at the same time make it playable, this is the deck for you. So James, it's been a pleasure, man. We're so glad to have you on. I'm so glad to see this success of this campaign so far, though. I think you've really done a phenomenal job, like I said. And I hope everyone out there, if you are not following James yet on Instagram, check him out at The Card Inn and at Good Pals Code. The links are down in the description below as well. Check out the campaign. Check out everything James has going on because there's going to be some fun stuff coming out of the Good Pals. I just know it.
Thanks for having me, Tyler, and for going over the campaign.
Anytime, honestly, anytime. I'm excited to see how this plays out. Let's see if we can get them up to 200, everybody. Go check it out. Click on that campaign. Back it for a deck or two. And definitely have a great time this weekend. And we will talk to you all soon. Thanks for coming out.